الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا بما علمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. بسم الله. قال المؤلف رحمه الله محمد العربي القروي in his book خلاصة الفقهية عند سادة المذهب المالكية على مذهب السادة المالكية. We were talking about al-ghusl, and today we will the next. It's still we're still talking about ghusl, but we will talk about the last topics about ghusl and what will require what is it that requires ghusl. And the first question here, هل يقوم, one of the last things that we will speak about in the rulings, هل يقوم الغسل مقام الوضوء إذا علم المغتسل أنه غير مجنب. So someone who wants to do ghusl, but he only he only needs wudu, but he starts to do ghusl. Is that sufficient for his wudu?
I think so.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course. Mashallah, that's logical. Very logical. Easy. So someone needs to do wudu, but he starts to do ghusl, but he doesn't have janaba, so that's fine because al-ghusl is higher than al-wudu, so it covers it. إذا نوى المغتسل رفع الحدث الأكبر يعني أنه مجنب ثم تبين أنه غير مجنب. But he comes into the wudu, he comes into the ghusl, and he thinks that he's doing رفع الجنابة. He's removing his major impurity, but then he remembers that he doesn't have major impurity. He continues to do ghusl, the same thing. Okay, the same thing. So he only needs to have wudu, but he's doing ghusl, and that ghusl is sufficient, inshallah. وله أن يصلي به مثاله لو انغمس بالماء, and so on. The same thing here. The second question is ما الحكم إذا حصل له ناقض للوضوء أثناء غسله أو غسله. And this is a good question because it happens to us a lot. It says, what happens if you start making ghusl and then you break your wudu while you make a ghusl? We know what breaks your wudu. It could be any of those things, right? Touching your private part, passing wind, number one, number two, whatever. So what happens if you are doing ghusl and while you're doing that ghusl, you're breaking your wudu? Okay? We're speaking about wudu because this is the beginning. In the beginning, when we start doing ghusl, and if it's al-ghusl al-mandub, the desirable form of ghusl starts with al-wudu. But instead of doing your limbs 3 times, you do it just once. Remember that? So إذا لم يتم غسله وحصل له ناقض للوضوء من حدث كريح أو سبب, and so on and so on. أعاد ما فعله من الوضوء مرة. So if someone passes wind while he's doing his wudu or he's doing his ghusl, he repeats his wudu so he repeats it from the beginning. Okay? If he has done the ghusl, finished his ghusl, and he's broken his wudu, he does his wudu. That's very simple. If he's in the beginning and he's doing the wudu and he breaks it, then he repeats it again from the beginning, but only the limbs once each. وإذا تم غسله وحصل الناقض, we mentioned this one. Okay. The third question, ما حكم من توضأ بنية رفع الحدث الأصغر ثم تمم الغسل بنية رفع الحدث الأكبر. So you go into your washroom or in your bathtub, and you start doing your wudu. All you're intending to do is wudu, but in the middle of your wudu, you said, I want to do my ghusl, my janaba. I recall that I need to do my janaba. Does that work? By making the intention in the middle of your wudu. So here, the question here is because the intention came after you started the wudu.
I don't think that's going to work, but...
Why? Explain to me.
Because the steps you did from before, you had the intention for it, right?
Yes, but your wudu is correct. And if you recall, when you do al-ghusl al-mandub, the desirable form of ghusl, it includes the wudu, but that wudu is for the wudu, it's not for the ghusl.
Wait, so you still can do it because the wudu is not part of the ghusl. It's like just sunnah.
Yes, that's it. Yes, you're getting there. You're getting there. Exactly. Al-ghusl al-mandub. So this is the form that is desirable. So you're starting with a form that has a ruling of desired. So it's not you're not. So you're able to continue with a different intention. Okay, so that's it.
But you can't do that with fara'id of wudu or something.
Like what?
Like you can switch your intention in this case because you're just doing something sunnah first, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
But if you were switching your, I don't know how to explain it. Like
what you said is good. No, what you said is good, and that's what we need to know for now. So Mahdi is saying, because we're starting, Assalamu alaikum, because we're starting with something which is the sunnah of ghusl, then it's okay to switch your intention in the middle of that sunnah for something. But you shouldn't leave it too long. You should have it before you start washing your entire body. So من توضأ بنية رفع الحدث الأصغر ثم تبين له أن عليه الحدث الأكبر فتمم غسله بنية رفع الحدث الأكبر فإنه يجزئه. It's permissible. ولا يعيد غسل أعضاء الوضوء, and he doesn't have to repeat the wudu. ولو كان ناسيا. That's what we've just said just now. فإن تذكر فإن يبني بنية على ما غسله من الوضوء بشرط أن لا يطول الزمن. Okay, very good. That's what we've just covered, and that's correct. The other question is هل يصح أن يجمع في النية بين نية الغسل الواجب والغسل النافلي. So this becomes a little bit meticulous because there are different levels of ghusl. Okay, is all the ghusl fard?
no.
What? Show me what is. Give me an example of a ghusl which is sunnah and a ghusl which is mustahab.
Ghusl which is sunnah, you first make wudu before you make ghusl, and you have the proper intention, and then you're.
No, that's what I'm talking about. The ghusl which is sunnah, when you do al-ghusl which is fard, it is to remove the janaba. Like someone.
The reason for the ghusl.
Yes. So the reason for the ghusl, is either wajib, is either sunnah, and is either mustahab. Can you do? So what? Can you give me an example of what is al-ghusl al-wajib, al-ghusl al-mustahab, and al-ghusl sunni, al-masnoon?
Like if it's Friday, making ghusl would be sunnah, right?
MashaAllah, Maliki, for sure. Yes.
Okay. If you have like major impurity, then making ghusl would be fard on you. I don't know about wajib.
No, this is wajib, the fard. We're talking about fard is the same as wajib.
Oh, okay.
So it's fard and wajib if you are doing ghusl for major impurity. Someone has had intercourse with his spouse, that's wajib for him to take a shower, to wash. One of the examples of al-ghusl al-mustahab is Eid. Okay, so in any case, this is like differences of opinion, but these are just one. We'll go over it right now, inshallah. So the question is, can you have the intention of, like, you're going to do ghusl of Jumu'ah. Today is Jumu'ah, and I'm doing ghusl for Jumu'ah, and it's a sunnah. Is that intention sufficient for me to remove the major impurity?
I don't think so. No.
Why?
Because you have the wrong intention, right? If you pray salah with the wrong intention for the wrong salah, then it won't count, right?
So you're on the right path, because the intention for that ghusl was not for removing the major impurity, and that is an obligation. That is like a fard. It's wajib. Those two words are the same in the Maliki. Fard and wajib, to do a ghusl for al-janaba. If you have done it for Jumu'ah, then it will not be sufficient, because that intention was not the same. It was less overruling. So the answer is من كانت عليه جنابة فاغتسل بنية رفع الجنابة والغسل والنفل بنفع الجنابة والغسل والنفل حصل المقصود له من الواجب والنفل. Let's say, okay, the first answer is if someone combined the two intentions. I'm going to Jumu'ah, to Salat al-Eid. So my ghusl is mustahab or nafil. Or it's like I just want to have ghusl, like I want to repeat my ghusl. That is nafil. If I combine that nafil with the wajib, then it is permissible. Those two, if you can combine those two intentions, no problem. Clear?
Okay, but if you forget the other intention, then what happens?
No, if you forget the wajib, then you're not. You have to repeat it.
Okay.
كمن نوى رفع الجنابة غسل الجمعة أو غسل الإحرام في الحج في الحج الذين هما من قبل غسل المسلم. So it's like the person who goes to the person who is going to Hajj or to do Umrah. Before going to Hajj and doing Umrah at the miqat or in your hotel in Medina, you wash, and that ghusl is nafila, is mustahab. It's not nafila, I'm sorry. It's mustahab. That ghusl is nafila, is mustahab. And you're doing the ghusl for janaba, so you're doing them together with the intention of fard and mustahab, it is permissible. Or you're going to Jumu'ah and you're combining the two ghusl together, and it is permissible. أو الغسل لدخول مكة الذين هما من الغسل المستحبة. Okay. وكذلك الحكم عينه إذا نوى غسل الجنابة عن غسل النفل مقصود. Okay, we've covered it very well, alhamdulillah. So the other question is هل يصح وضوء الجنوب وبما ينقض? Someone is, had intercourse with his spouse, and that night, with his janaba, he wants to go to bed and sleep. Can he go to bed without making ghusl?
I don't know.
It's makruh, or it's permissible. It's okay. But it's in some if you are going to say it is mustahab to have wudu. We're talking about wudu after janaba. Today it's very easy. You go into a shower, you have your ghusl, and the deal is done. However, if you don't have the water, if you're like camping somewhere and there's not access to water, you should at least do wudu. It's mustahab to do wudu before going to sleep. And if you don't have water to do wudu before going to sleep, you go to sleep. But you don't have to do tayammum. You should not do tayammum, because that does not, in this case, before going to sleep, and you should do wudu, it's mustahab. It is not replaced by a tayammum. Is that clear?
The tayammum is like lesser than wudu.
The tayammum is equal to wudu if you have certain conditions. If someone is sick, we can't say that tayammum is lesser. If someone has skin problems and cannot wash with water, those are some of the conditions. Then you don't use water, you do tayammum. If you don't have water at all, and you know you're not going to get any water, what happens? You do tayammum. So those two are equal. But what you're saying about tayammum is lesser than wudu is that it does not remove. So you still have the you have not removed the najasa, you have not removed the things which are removed with water. That's what you mean by lesser, but it's not lesser in terms of hukm. In terms of hukm is the same, is equal. Clear?
Okay.
What?
No, I just thought it was still less because wudu, you putting the water around your whole body. I don't know. I thought it was
Absolutely no.
like
They are
that.
both they are both attaining the same hukm. You are both in both the wudu and both in tayammum. You are attaining the state of tahara. It's attained differently because in this case you have certain conditions that allows you to do it. In fact, you have no other way. If you ask me the question, we'll get this. We'll speak about this when we get to a tayammum. Someone who is not able to use water, who has problems with his skin, or someone who does not have any water at all, it is wajib for him to do tayammum. You see, it becomes wajib. Someone who is sick, who has problems with his skin, it's wajib for him not to use water. You see, it's wajib for that person.
Is it like different from like the reward you get?
What?
Like the reward you get in difference from tayammum?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's wajib. If it's wajib for you to do tayammum and not to do wudu, you get the same rewards, inshallah.
Okay.
Inshallah. Bismillah. So the question here is, that's we've just covered this about وهل الوضوء الذي يأتي به الجنب لا يبطله إلا الجماع. So that wudu that you've made before going to sleep is broken in the same way that a normal wudu would be broken. Of course, you cannot pray with that wudu because you are in the state of janaba. You're just doing a wudu to stay in the state of I don't know if we should say this, but relative tahara, because you want to sleep in a state which is proper. But that wudu is broken in the same way. For instance, if you go to the washroom, do your wudu again. If one has another intercourse with his wife or with a spouse, we should do wudu again. Next question: ما هو حكم الترك في الغسل? What is the ruling of leaving off something when you do ghusl? You forgot something. You forgot. You didn't wipe over your neck. You washed everything and you didn't wipe over your tie. Someplace over. You know that it remained dry. What do we do in this case? It says حكم الترك في الغسل هو حكم الترك في الوضوء إلا في صورة واحدة وهي أن. So it's the same thing. If you know that you didn't do something, then you go back and you do it. وهي أن من ترك لمعة من بدنه في الغسل وتذكرها بالقرب فعليه أن يقتصر على الإتيان بها وحدها والتي بما بعدها. So if it's a long time, if it's after a long time, you do that place which you didn't do, and you finish the rest that is in the order. But if it is like after a while and it's just a place, you just go and do that place. Okay. موجبات الغسل, and I think we're close to finishing, but we can try and go for another 5 minutes, inshallah. موجبات الغسل, and this becomes a little bit sensitive, especially with the type of audience that you have, but it's important to cover these things. What requires us to do ghusl? موجبات الغسل. موجبات الغسل هي أسبابه التي توجبه وهي 4. What will oblige us or require us to do al-ghusl? The first one, خروج المني. So we're not talking about the general action of interaction, with the spouse. We're talking about al-mani. The sperm comes out from the private part, and al-mani is the same for the men and the women. I will not go into the details of how it looks like and what it is for the women or for the men. We've discussed it more or less in the past. So when the mani comes out, then one has to do al-ghusl. The only difference, the only exception is when al-mani comes out from, and I think we've also covered these situations when it doesn't have to do with sexual intercourse or pleasure. it's from the bite of a scorpion or from something on your skin, and so it comes beyond your control, and you're not and you are not encouraging that sperm to come out. Anyway, so in general, the first one is al-mani. The second one, maghib al-hashafa. Maghib al-hashafa is when the two private parts meet. And I will not go into the details here, it's very clear. They do give us a lot of details, but it's not necessary. Wal-haydu, the menstrual period for the women, and that's a few days a month in general, between 4 to 7 days a month a woman is in her menses. And the fourth one is an-nifas, that's the blood that comes out after she delivers the newborn. And so the first question, now we're going into the details. We have a couple of minutes left. خروج المني أو بروزه من فرج المرأة أو ذكر الرجل. So it's the same for both men and women when the sperm comes out. وإما أن يكون في نوم أو يقظة. Okay, so he speaks about the different situations, and that's not necessary to go through. إذا كان خروج المني بغير جماع فإن كانت اللذة ناشئة من جماع بأن. Again, I mean, all these differences, these details, not necessary to cover. The second one, ما هو حكم من شك بأن هذا مني أو مذي أو ظن. So before going into the explanation of this question, the question says, what is the ruling of the person who doubts that this mani, okay, someone is, you went to bed, you had a wet dream, or maybe you didn't have, you don't know what happened, you didn't remember anything, but you wake up and you find something which is wet. So what is the ruling of the one who doubts that this thing which is wet is mani or madhi, or it is dhan? So before going into the answer, we have to explain what is a shak and what is a dhan. A shak is to doubt. Doubting is very low, like I doubt. I have a doubt. Did I do this? I think maybe I didn't. So it's about 10%, 5%, 15%. A dhannu is much higher. I suspect that I did this. So dhannu goes all the way up to 90-95%. And then there is yaqeen. Yaqeen is I'm certain. So there is the level between. And then there is the lower one, which is wahm. Like I am just imagining, or it's like I think I'm imagining this. Right? So that's less than shak, less than 2%, or maybe 0, or I don't know. The scholars have given it, some numbers. So there's wahm, okay, it's just imagining, and then there is a shak, I'm doubting, that's a very low. Then there is a dhan, I'm suspecting, and then there is yaqeen, I am certain that this happened. I saw it, I remember it, like I can see you right now.
All of these different ones have different rulings?
Yes. For instance, good question. For instance, I forget the companion's now. I believe it was Omar who was walking with someone, and the companion walked under, and then there is water that dropped, and the brother, the companion says, I think this may have been from the washroom, right? Someone threw something from the washroom. You know that hadith? So Sayyidina Omar said, no, don't worry. What is so here we see the balance between al-yaqeen wa shak. Okay? Not even a-dhan. A-dhan is in the middle. So al-yaqeen, for sure, your clothes are pure, are tahir. But what came from the roof was it najis? So what level of certainty was it?
It was in the middle?
It was a doubt. We don't know. Well, no, we're not. Are you suspecting? It's not. It's a higher than dhan is higher than suspecting. It's like, I'm pretty sure it is. So it's not even there. It's shak. It's the lower.
So it's like maybe it happened.
Maybe it's from najasa. Maybe it's from najasa. So if you have dhan, I am yaqeen that I have, this is clean, and that is shak, this beats this. You see? So this is not the ruling of the tahara of my clothes will not be removed from the ruling of the doubtfulness of that element. You clear?
You're certain your clothes are clean, so that like overrides it.
Exactly. So the ruling of your clothing, which is clean, tahir, overrules the ruling of the water which you fell from the roof and you don't know what it is, right? So here it says, what is the ruling? The one who has doubted. Now you wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning and you realize whether it was, well, if it was a wet dream, you know. But you don't know what it was. If it's a wet dream, you know. But you don't know what it was. So what is this? Al-mani, is it sperm? Al-madhi, the thing that comes before the sperm, and that's just removing it with water. You don't have to take ghusl. Or are you dhan? So you have the dhan, as I'm pretty sure it is sperm. من انتبه في نومه, the answer is من انتبه في نومه فوجد في ثوبه بللا أو بدنه فشك. So now I wake up and I don't know where this came from and I'm doubting. هل هو مني? Is it mani, sperm, or is it madhi? وجب عليه الغسل. In this case وجب عليه الغسل لأن الشك مؤثر في إيجاب الطهارة بخلاف الوهم. So here that shak, that suspicion or that doubtfulness becomes strong because there is. Remember, the question is what? The question is it this or this or this? Is it mani, madhi? Is it this or this? So because there is that possibility, then it is wajib to. Are you there? Okay, I have to.